I just have a, I shouldn't do that on screen. Hello everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm the Viet Vegan because I'm Viet and I'm vegan, and today's video is sponsored by Bento because we're making a delicious, beautiful bento box today. I'm using Bento boxes. If you guys want to buy your own, I'll leave a link down below with this code that you can use for 10% off. There's a sale starting January 20th. You can use my code on top of the sale that's happening right now. Take advantage while you can. I bought these bento boxes last summer and I started watching Terrace House and I just fell in love with the idea of making a bento for your date. And so I really loved making them for hikes, not just for me and Eddie, but also for my friends. So I've really enjoyed using the bento boxes as this cute little package of food. It forces me to make the most out of the space that I have, and surprisingly, they look pretty small, but they actually hold a lot of food. But they also have a square size that's a little bit bigger, that much bigger, that holds even more food if you want. I find that this is a very reasonable amount of food for one person. I love this one. This is the plant one. Eddie uses this black one, and then I have this plant one, and I will use often both for packing bentos for hikes. I have a couple recipes that you can use to make onigiri, for example, in bento boxes, so I'll link them down below. Today we're making a sort of Thai-inspired satay with green papaya salad. When I look up versions of green papaya salad, they're very similar to Vietnamese gỏi đu đủ, which is green papaya salad, but the version that I always remember is a lot stinkier. So I made more of a Vietnamese style green papaya salad with a Thai style satay and mix them together, and it's a very delicious stinky time. Let's just make the recipe, shall we? So to start, rehydrate our soy coals. You can use tofu and you can use tempeh if you want. I haven't tried it with this particular recipe, but I imagine if you've marinated tempeh or tofu before, same sort of deal. You want to press your tofu to get rid of as much liquid as you can, like you would with soy curls. But I wanted more a chickeny type situation because satay is typically made with chicken. I like to rehydrate my soy curls with a little bit of mushroom broth powder. This just gives it a little bit extra salt, extra flavor. Totally unnecessary. If you want to use your own broth powder or bouillon, feel free to use that. I like to use boiling water, but it's, as you can see from the steam, it gets pretty hot and pretty toasty. If you're impatient, then maybe use half hot water or half boiling water and half cold tap water or cool tap water to rehydrate the soy curls. I let that sit there for about 10 to 15 minutes. If you're using boiling water, you only really need 5 minutes. But if you're using a more lukewarm, warmish temperature, then you might take a little bit longer. So you're just gonna want them until they're nice and soft and no longer hard or crusty in any bits. Drain that over the sink and squeeze out as much liquid as you can. The more water you can squeeze out of it, the more marinade it'll soak up. To make the marinade, you're gonna combine brown sugar, yellow curry paste, vegan fish sauce, kosher salt, vinegar, coco rico or water, and full fat coconut milk. I use coco rico because I just wanted a little bit more sweetness and more fun, and I just had it beside me, but I tried it with both water and both coco rico, both totally fine. A little extra sweetness does help it a little bit, but you can always compensate with a little bit more brown sugar if you like things a little bit sweeter. If you want it to be spicier, you can use a red curry paste instead. I'm using these Aroy D yellow and red curry paste, but whatever vegan curry paste that you can find, totally use those. A lot of the different versions of satay that I've seen, you can either make the curry paste from scratch, you can make the marinade from scratch. I'm very lazy, so I've made this recipe as lazy as possible despite it being a little time intensive. So you're gonna combine all the ingredients for the marinade together, give it a good mix to make sure everything is evenly incorporated, especially break up the brown sugar and the curry paste because you don't want any clumps of that. Squeeze out as much liquid as you can out of the soy curls. Once that's all done, pour the marinade on top of the soy curls and use your hands to really massage in the marinade. And then you're gonna set that aside for at least half an hour. You can prep this the day before if you want to, but most of the marinade gets soaked into the soy curls anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but at least half an hour. So while that sits on the side, you can start prepping your papaya salad. Papaya salad is typically made with this green young papaya. If you can't find this, you can also use unripe green mango. It's a separate dish, but you'll have similar results. The ingredients that I use to make green mango salad and green papaya salad are very similar, although green mango salad will be significantly more sour. So I find green papaya at my Asian grocery store. It's beside the cabbage, if that helps you. It looks like an unripe papaya. It is firmer and less flavorful than papaya, but that's kind of the point. Do your best to scrape out the seeds as much as possible. I've completely cut out this part with the seeds because I have extreme trypophobia, and that is not a good time, and I don't want to live that ever again. I was freaking out the entire time I was scraping it out, and I got Eddie to scrape out the second one because it was too much. But it is really delicious, this salad, so you do what you gotta for the gỏi đu đủ. If you have superior knife skills, feel free to just chop this all up and chop it into fine julienne strips. If you have a mandolin slicer, totally use that. One of those fun julienne peelers, that would also be great because it's a pretty firm vegetable, so it's like pretty easy. Well, it's technically a fruit, but it's very easy to like cut with that because it's so firm. I, of course, am kind of terrified of my mandolin slicer, and I still haven't really mastered it. So I went the old-fashioned way by just chopping it up with my slightly dull knife. I need to sharpen that. Once it's all cut into fine strips, then you're going to make the sauce. This is like a very like Vietnamese thing that I have grown up with. My mom always stuck me with this like chore, I guess, of pounding the garlic and the chilies and the sugar together to make this paste. My family always had this mortar and pestle, and anytime we had to make fish sauce, this type of salad, or anything that required garlic, chili, and sugar as like a paste for part of the sauce, I was always stuck with that task. If you don't have this, you can chop it all up. You can use a rolling pin, you can smash it, whichever you want to do. Honestly, you could even be really lazy about it and just use a garlic press, but I went full traditional style with this and I pounded it with the mortar and pestle. So the idea of this is that it sort of like sweetens the garlic and the chili and sort of like marinates all these sugars and oils and flavor together. And somehow the garlic isn't as like punchy when it's processed like this. I'm sure there's like a science to it. I don't know it. Do your best to get as much of the chili like disintegrated as possible, because nobody wants a big chunk of like the chili. It's not a good time. The seeds get sort of like dispersed, so it's like all sort of evenly spicy instead of getting like, you know, a mouthful of just the seeds and you're like, ooh, that is spicy. If you can't handle spice, no worries. Either use half a chili or don't use the chili at all. You totally don't need it, but it does add a delicious flavor. When I first tried this and I didn't have access to fish sauce, I used like sauerkraut liquid or kimchi liquid for that kind of like stinky, salty flavor. If you don't have access to vegan fish sauce, totally use that, but I do have fish sauce, and you can also use soy sauce if you really want to. It'll add extra, obviously, soy sauce flavor, but you'll get that sort of like umami, salty, funky flavor that is as close to vegan fish sauce as you can find. I typically find vegan fish sauce at like Asian markets. I usually get it at Tan Tan or Coven or B&T's. Wherever you can find it locally, highly recommend going there. The rest of the sauce is made with 2 limes. I cut it this like way that my mom always showed me how to cut it, because the inside fiber and like the membrane of limes is actually a lot harder than a lemon. It's harder to use those like lemon squeezers. So I cut around the core and then I wring the core kind of like a towel, I guess. And that way you can get all the juice out of that as you can. And then you just squeeze the other lime pieces and it's a lot easier. You get more juice out of it and it's like less work on your hands. So once you have 2 limes juiced, mix it with your paste of garlic, sugar, and chili. Mix that all together, and that's your dressing for the papaya salad. Pour that all over the salad and give it a good mix. Make sure everything's nice and coated. Kind of pack everything down and then let it sit and marinate for about at least half an hour in the fridge or on the counter. To make this peanut sauce, you can either heat it over a pan to sort of like loosen up the natural peanut butter, or if your peanut butter is nice and liquidy like mine, you don't really need to heat it up. A lot of the times when I look up how to make peanut sauce, especially like authentic peanut sauce, they use fresh roasted peanuts that they blitz and turn into peanut butter. I don't have time for that. That sounds delicious, but that is a lot of effort when I can just use peanut butter that I have in the cupboard. You can use regular peanut butter as well, like Kraft peanut butter or like something like that. It'll be sweeter, so adjust for the other ingredients that you have if you don't want it to be as sweet. This is like the peanut butter I get from Costco. This is like a fresh boy, so it is a very nice liquidy and stuff. So if you have like a chunkier natural peanut butter, no worries, we're gonna put that on the stove and just heat everything up. You add coconut milk, salt, curry paste. Now you can use either red curry paste or yellow curry paste. I've tried both. In filming this, I just used yellow, but I've used red before. It's very tasty, very spicy, whatever you desire. You're gonna use some brown sugar and lime juice. Mix that all together and whisk it over a low heat until everything melts and is completely incorporated, then transfer to a container for later. Another thing that was like a chore that I was stuck with as a kid was roasting these peanuts. I'm not gonna include this in the instruction in the recipe because this is totally not necessary. I just thought it was something that was like relatable for a lot of like Southeast Asian kids who like had to do this chore of like de-skinning the peanuts. My mom would always roast these peanuts in a pan and I'd be the one stuck there stirring them to make sure it was all done. And once it was all done, then I had to peel all these peanuts, and it was like such a hassle to like de-skin all these stinking peanuts. By the time I was done, I'd eaten so many that there was maybe like a third missing. But you know what? That's the skin tax, okay? You peel the skin, you get some of the peanuts, okay? If you have access to a bulk food store and they have roasted unsalted peanuts, just totally use those. They're not quite as good as freshly roasted, but they will do the trick. You can now take your marinated soy curls and start skewering them. If you're gonna cook this on the barbecue, I highly recommend soaking the skewers first. I'm just using a griddle today, so I just kind of dunk them in water, but they will do the trick. So with the satay skewers, with the longer piece of the soy curls, you are more easily able to skewer those onto the stick. But if you're left with a bunch of like little itty bitty bits, don't worry about those. We're gonna cook those in a pan separately. I like to meal prep that as easily as I can in like a big wok and just cooking them until everything is caramelized around the sides. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to kind of dry out the marinade and like caramelize all the soy curls. It's really delicious, and if you don't want to skewer, this is totally a method that you can cook with. If you want to skewer them and have more of like a traditional satay experience, then skewer them onto the wooden skewers, brush them with coconut milk, and then grill them or griddle them on each side until browned with a basting of coconut milk. It takes about 5 minutes on one side and then baste the other side and then fry those as well. If you're using a griddle, you might need to press down with the spatula to kind of like evenly get all the surface touching to really caramelize the marinade. But once that's all done, your satay is ready. So I like to serve this with some steamed rice. Then you have the peanut sauce in one of the little inserts that they have for sauces. I add a little bit of cucumbers for a little garnish, a little green, a little crunchy freshness. Trim the skewers a little bit so they'll fit into the bento boxes. Garnish with some crushed peanuts and some chopped cilantro. And then for the second layer, take the marinated green papaya salad, dump it all in there. Some may argue that they would rather like a smaller portion of the salad and more rice and satay, but honestly, I love this papaya salad. It is like so stinky, so crunchy, so like savory. Oh, it's so good. Garnish with some chopped Thai basil, some crushed peanuts. If you have cherry tomatoes, that's also like very common in there. Traditionally in the Thai version, there's also like the long green beans that you add in there. I don't really like them that much, so I just don't use them. So I just use green papaya salad. And then that's it. That's the bento box. So close all the lids up. You got your layers, add a little cutlery piece on top, and voila, that is the meal. It is a very delicious time. I do like meal prepping this actually because it's quite easy, because once you cook all the soy curls, you can store them in the fridge, and then the peanut sauce can store separately in the fridge as well. And of course, Eddie really enjoys the satay and the peanut sauce. I've used it on rice. I've used it in like tacos because I ran out of rice, and so I was like, oh, I'm too lazy to cook more rice. I've just put it in like taco shells before. That's been a delicious time, I will say. And this papaya salad is really great for storing over a long time because it stays nice and crunchy, and it gets like more marinated in the flavor and the stinky salty flavor. It's so good. It works great in the bento box, and it is beautiful and delicious to look at. Does that make sense? It's delicious to eat and beautiful to look at. There we go. That's the English. So as I said, if you guys want the coupon code for Mom Bento boxes, they have a sale starting from January 20th. Feel free to use it. Link down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you make it. And if you do, tag me on Instagram. I'm the Viet Vegan there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a delicious day. Bye.
Sweet.